Alright, we are back with our Fundrise videos. So in case you're new to this channel, I used to make a lot of videos updating you guys on my Fundrise portfolio. If you are not familiar with what Fundrise is and how you can invest with real estate with just $10, continue watching this video. However, if you're already familiar with Fundrise and just want to see a portfolio update, feel free to skip to this timestamp over here. But I'm definitely really excited to make this video after taking a break for a couple of years. So let's jump into it. Okay, so if you're newer to this concept, let's talk about what is Fundrise. So Fundrise is a real estate investment platform that allows everyday investors to get involved in real estate without buying or managing physical properties. Through Fundrise, you can invest in a diversified portfolio of commercial and residential real estate across the US. So it's pretty much like becoming a real estate investor, but instead of you just purchasing a property by yourself, you're pretty much pooling the money with a bunch of other people and investing in different real estate projects, which is perfect for diversification. And also this concept makes real estate investing more accessible because, let's be real, especially in this market, most of us can only dream about buying our first home, let alone invest in real estate. However, on Fundrise, you can start with as little as $10. So you're probably wondering, like, how come you stopped posting about Fundrise? So I think I posted my last Fundrise video in early 2023, which is at this point was already like 2 years ago. So in all transparency, as we all know, the real estate market went through quite a few changes at the end of 2022, with interest rates suddenly rising drastically and the real estate market slowing down, as well as, on the personal side, I actually ended up purchasing my first home, which I was super excited about. In order to do that, I cashed out a bunch of money from my savings as well as my Fundrise portfolio. And considering the economic uncertainty and a lot of uncertainty in the real estate market, I kind of decided to go with that let's wait and see what happens approach. So I didn't really put a lot of money into my Fundrise portfolio, but I also didn't completely empty it. In today's video, we get to see what happened with my portfolio since then. So the good news is, if you are interested in Fundrise and you're completely new to it, you can use my link down below to literally get $50 for free towards your portfolio, which again is free money, so make sure you take advantage of it. Okay guys, so let's start inside of my portfolio. I am going to start at the very beginning just so that you guys know the full context, since it has been a while. So I started my Fundrise journey back in March 2021 when I decided to invest $1,000 of, again, my own money. This video is not sponsored by anyone, plus I had like maybe 5 subscribers on YouTube back in 2021. This is what I ended up doing. So I invested $1,000 to see what it's going to be like, and I pretty much decided and forget it, and started kind of slowly seeing some growth over the course of the next few months. I would also say 2021 was definitely a unique year for real estate because that's when interest rates were super duper low, so real estate was just absolutely booming. And so even with just $1,000, I was definitely seeing some passive income coming in. So after about 5 months, that's where I kind of decided to scale a little bit, and that's when I ended up purchasing the Fundrise IPO. So I put in about an extra $1,000 of, once again, my own money. I don't know why I keep saying my own money, it's just all my own money here. And so that was around the time when I started doing the recurring weekly, actually bi-weekly deposits. It was only about $40, so it was about $20 per week, so not that much, but as you guys can see, it did continue growing quite a bit. At the end of 22, that's when I ended up investing another $1,000, I believe, at which point my portfolio reached the all-time high of over $4,000. And all that said, that value was a combination of the recurring deposits, the lump sums, and then the appreciation. And as you guys can see, at the peak of my portfolio in September 2022, my overall appreciation and earnings and everything were about $400, a little bit over 10% return overall. And then we all know what happened at the end of 2022. That's when the interest rates ended up going up, and that's when we also started seeing kind of the slowdown in the market right here, which did continue all throughout 2023 as well. So again, at that point, I was still doing my recurring bi-weekly deposits, but as the real estate market was slowing down, my portfolio started losing value. So at that point, I was down a little bit over $100 or so. And then you're probably wondering, like, what the heck happened here? So even though it wasn't the best time for me to cash out, since I technically was a little bit in the negative in terms of returns, that was also around the time when I actually ended up purchasing my first home, and I need a little bit of extra money for the down payment, as well as for things like furniture, upgrades, and all the fun things that come with purchasing your own home. And so that was around the time when I decided to apply for redemption to withdraw about $2,700. And then, unlike what most people believe, you actually can redeem your shares. It's not ideal, and it does take quite some time. I do believe you can only do it once a quarter. In the ideal world, you're supposed to keep your investments for about 5 years, but unlike some of the other real estate investing trusts or platforms that I've tested in the past, Fundrise actually did end up giving me my money back. So, in case it's something you're worried about, at least in my case, I was able to get my money back. It definitely wasn't as instant as what it probably would have been with the stock market, for example, just just because in the case of Fundrise, there's real estate involved, which is a pretty illiquid asset. But yeah, I ended up cashing out my earnings. And in case you're wondering if I feel silly about it or not, yeah, I do, because as you guys can see, that was about the time when the market started picking back up a little bit and my investments were actually growing. And as you can see, from about July 6, 2024 to today, which I'm filming this in April 2025, my portfolio did go from about $1,000 to about $1,300. But anyways, with that said, let's talk about the overall numbers. So if we're looking at the time frame of the last like 3 months, my portfolio is technically up about 0.6%, which, you know, pretty much as it being flat. Then in the last 6 months, it's up about 2%. Year to date, it's, you know, once again, barely up. And then within the last year, it's actually up 10%. So, you know, obviously if I didn't cash out my money or bought a little bit more, I probably would have been up quite a bit more than that in terms of the dollar value. But once again, sometimes life happens and you just need extra money for your actual home. And if we're talking about all time, I'm still technically a little bit in the negative, so about negative 2.8%. And now if you compare this to, let's say, my stock market returns, there's definitely quite a bit of a difference there. Or even if you look at my high yield savings account, there's quite a bit of difference there as well. So overall, Fundrise is definitely not my highest returning investment. However, like I always said, when it comes to investing, I love diversifying. You know, I do have a very big chunk of my money in the stock market, in the high yield savings account, in real estate, in luxury bags, gold, everything. But I do love having a little bit of money in something like Fundrise, just because it's a good way to diversify. I also do think that this was a very weird time period to look at, since, you know, we had a time like 2021 and 2022 when the market was just like going insane, and then we have times when the market was like totally slowing down. So these are definitely very unique time periods to look at, but I'm definitely curious to see what it's all going to look like long term, since it has been almost 5 years since I first opened my Fundrise account. So I'm definitely really curious. So as you guys probably saw, it didn't quite outperform the stock market. However, with what happened to the stock market just recently, I am filming this in April 2025. And if you guys watching it around the time when I posted, you probably know that the stock market went into a complete free fall earlier this month due to the tariff announcements. So I personally thought that having something like Fundrise was a really great way to diversify my investments, because even though Fundrise didn't bring me as impressive returns as, like, for example, my stock portfolio did, it also didn't completely go down during times like this. So from a personal perspective, I like keeping my money in a lot of different places. I have obviously my money in a high yield savings account, I have in a stock market, 401k, Roth IRA, and then having a REIT like Fundrise has also been a great way for me to diversify my investments and have a peace of mind during times like this. And so with that said, I'm actually going to start investing in Fundrise once again, just as a way to diversify my investments. I personally think if you've always been interested in real estate investing, but don't really have like a few hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest right away, Fundrise could be a really great option to dip your toe into the real estate market. So once again, make sure to use my link down below. This video is not sponsored by Fundrise. However, if you use my link down below, you're still able to get $50 towards your portfolio. So make sure you take advantage of this. Oh, by the way, if you like this video, I actually think you're going to like this one as well. So make sure to check it out. And as always, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.